So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May Jam webinar. My name is Tanisha Ford, and I will be hosting for you guys today. I am an African-American woman of indiscriminate age with natural curly hair that you cannot see right now because it is under a head wrap that is blue, yellow, and white. I am wearing a white sweater. I will respond to any pronoun so long as it's done respectfully. I'm coming to you today from my home office in Willingboro, New Jersey, the ancestral homeland of the Lenni Lenape people. It's going to give us a little housekeeping. Good morning, everyone. If you click the show captions below, you'll be able to have captions for this, this webinar. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A below as they come to you, and we'll address them with our speakers at the end of the presentation. We are recording today's webinar, and we will share that video along with the slide deck. So if you want to go back and refer to anything or share this with your colleagues that might not have been able to join us today, you can do so easily. And you will get those through our post-webinar recap email. To get the best view of this presentation, make sure your gallery view is on speaker view. That way you can have all the wonderful morsels that Howard and Anne-Marie have created for you. A quick overview of the webinar. We'll be covering, we'll be hearing from Anne-Marie, Director of Advocacy and Public Policy from ArtPride, New Jersey, and Howard Levine from the State Theater, New Jersey, the Vice President of Marketing. Oh, Howard, I just fumbled that ball, but that's all right. We're gonna pick up that ball. Vice President of Marketing and Guest Services. Anne-Marie leads ArtPride's advocacy and governmental affairs efforts and serves as a chief connector of the arts to other public and private sectors. As a member of the senior management team, her goal is for the general public to gain a greater understanding of how art is comprehensively integrated into all aspects of our everyday lives. She'll be followed by the Vice President of Marketing and Guest Services, Mr. Howard Levine. Howard's first joined State Theater, New Jersey in 2016 as Senior Director of Marketing. He now oversees the Marketing and Guest Services departments, bringing a coordination of efforts to State Theater, New Jersey's patron relationship building. Previously, Mr. Levine served on the senior leadership team of the 92nd Street Y as Director of Digital Innovation and Creative Strategy and Director of Milstein Rosenthal Center for Media and Technology. Prior to that, Howard was Art Director at the McCarter Theater Center in Princeton. So I'm really, really pleased that we have these wonderful people here to talk with us today. So we're going to start off with the incomparable Anne-Marie Miller.
Morning, everybody. I am Anne-Marie. I am a white cis female. I'm wearing a greenish blue shirt. There's some of my artwork in the background. And I am the senior of the senior management team. So that'll give you some age reference. I am in my home office in mythical Central Jersey, which is also home of the Lenni Lenape tribe. So my job today, and interestingly enough, as Tanisha mentioned, Howard's background, Howard and I used to work together at McCarter in a different lifetime, he in marketing and I in development. So this is kind of a natural for us in terms of this webinar. So the first slide, my job is basically to tell you that as marketers and JAM folks, you can be an advocate and do this every day, sort of seamlessly, almost without thinking, but you are already an advocate because you advocate for your organization all the time in terms of all the promotional efforts that you do Next slide, please. But the idea is basically, how do you do this in a way that is painless? Because when people say the word advocate, it tends to sound heavy and hard and a little scary. So this is a little bit about, this is the part you were born to play, and it is at the center of all of your marketing efforts. One thing I didn't put in the slide is that you actually, when you market and you have the New Jersey State Council on the Arts logo on your in your ads and all of your promotional material, you are already advocating, because that tells people that funding comes from a public government source. Next slide, please. You have tools in your toolbox all the time, but the important things to remember are always to be informed. Like where is that state money coming from, and is it reliable? Like what's going on there and at the state of New Jersey? What, the amount of funding that you're getting is stable right now, and it is because our governor makes it so. So, but besides that, you have the stories. People tell you when you're in marketing what they like and why they like it, and if the price is right, and why the price is right may have a lot to do with the fact that you're receiving government support. So the idea is always, and this goes for development professionals as well, is to tell your stories and use data in those stories. The resources that you have at your disposal obviously are print and social media. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have on our website, a calendar, which actually needs to be updated because some of these month actions need to be tweaked a little bit, but it is there to tell you each month what you can do to stay active as an advocate. And this includes things like knowing who your lawmakers are and making sure that you have them on your lists to invite them to performances. And they actually can receive free tickets if in fact they have a speaking role. So whether it's at a gala or if it's at a performance, and you offer them a speaking role, say at a reception afterwards, where they have a few minutes to say something, they can receive free tickets. Otherwise, they should be purchasing tickets and be one of your patrons. The other things are outlined, and Tanisha was smart enough to put the QR code in there for that page on the ArtPride website, and the address is there as well. But it is important to know, are you receiving National Endowment for the Arts money? Are you receiving money from the state? In most cases you are. And then many of the organizations are also receiving money on a local level, either through their mayors or through their local arts commissions. And all of those things are important because those are the elements of making performances affordable. Otherwise, in this day and age, with prices as they are, and they skyrocket with the lesser amount of funding you have to support them. Next slide, please. So where can I get that data and information? Right now, again, the QR code is there, and the address is at the Keep Jersey Arts Alive site. And you can do keepjerseyartsalive.org as well and get that. The information is there for the entire state, but you can also drill down to what the information is for your particular county. We have not been able to update this on a city or town level yet. Hopefully in the future we can get there. But I want to show you a little bit how you can put this information to good use. And next slide, please. So this is an old document, and I just want to, it was done by the previous administration of the Center for Contemporary Art in Bedminster. The next couple slides will give you some information or ways, or actually strategies as to how you can use that information from the Keep Jersey Arts Alive site, and also drill down a little bit if you keep this kind of data, which I'm assuming most marketing professionals keep data relevant to their own particular organization. I thought this is 2017, so it's actually pre-pandemic, but it does include Somerset County, which Somerset County information is available at the Keep Jersey Arts Alive site. It talks about jobs and goods and services to local communities. This is a one-pager. You're going to see the next couple of slides. It all comes together in one page. They took all this information and sent it out to their donors. And so that's a development piece, but it's also a marketing piece. Talking about, what kind of jobs do we, how many people do we employ? Who are they? What do they do? And what do we buy in terms of goods and services? And so, the Center for Contemporary Arts outlined it, and it gets pretty specific. And if you're a theater, it gets even more specific in terms of set building and costumes, in addition to all these things. Next slide, please. So besides jobs and goods and services, what do you offer that's free? And that is government funding at work. And what are your educational opportunities for local students? And so they have all this information. A lot of this is in your, probably, if you don't have it directly, the development office certainly has it, because they're completing the State Arts Council final reports along with you, I'm sure. So all of this data should be available to you. And then what do you do for individual artists? And so that's the information there. New Jersey artists, county artists, where they come from, and how are you supporting them in your area? Next slide, please. And outreach. Outreach is really important. What do you do? What do you do that connects to other aspects of your lives? Certainly dealing with healthcare in terms of children with autism spectrum disorders, that is a healthcare issue. If you're working with seniors, that's also a healthcare issue. If you're working with your community development, local community development association, if you're working in ways that help improve their lives, those are also areas in which the arts touch that are not always obvious, especially here, temporarily homeless teens, adults with disabilities. All of these things are really important because they point to the value of what your organization does for your community. Next slide, please. All right, just before I did mention the NJSEA logo and that use, and also the Discover Jersey Arts logo and that use. But the one other thing I wanted to say is that you might consider using social media to actually expand on that a little bit and talk about where the money comes from. The other thing is we are in the process right now, and you probably all know this, of updating that Keep Jersey Arts Alive data through Arts and Economic Prosperity 6, because I'm sure folks have been bugging you about surveying audiences, and also I know development offices and the CEOs for your organizations have been asked for information through an online survey for Arts and Economic Prosperity 6. The numbers on Keep Jersey Arts Alive were through Arts and Economic Prosperity 5. They were really valuable in terms of doubling the amount of state funding. They were critical in educating our legislators. AEP 6 will do the same. So please, if you're involved, this project ends June 23rd, AEP 6. So please help your organization if they're already involved as audience surveying. Please help them as much as possible. I know it's a stretch. I know it's been a hard project. It's been in a year's worth of this project, but please persevere, because it's almost over, and we will have the data in September, October for the new survey. So now I want to introduce you to Howard Levine, my friend, and the Vice President of Marketing and Guest Services at State Theater. Go, Howard.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Anne Marie. I want to make sure you all can see my screen. So thanks again, Anne Marie, and especially thank you for not mentioning the years that we actually worked together, because I don't want to feel as old as I'm actually feeling. Again, I'm Howard Levine, and in addition to my role at State Theater, I'm also part of ArtPride's Jersey Arts Marketing leadership team. A little about me: I'm a middle-aged white male with graying hair. I'm wearing glasses and a blue and white checkered shirt, and I'm coming to you today from my home office in Hightstown, New Jersey, the ancestral homeland of the Lenni Lenape people. I'm going to be talking to you, sort of pivoting from what Anne Marie was talking about with the stats and statistics, and I'll give you some examples at the end of where we were able to use those very important stats and statistics to garner funding for a new program that we launched a few months back that is very important to the theater. But before I do that, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about patron loyalty building in general from an arts marketer perspective. Let me just see if I can advance my slides. So in patron loyalty, there's been a traditional model that I believe many of you probably are using and thinking through and know about. So I'll go through it somewhat fast, just as a refresher. But it's a model that looks at a patron's journey of growth and engagement within an organization like State Theater. And that model is based on the metaphor of a staircase. So imagine looking at a staircase that the bottom steps are people that are starting their engagement journey. So people that are trying your organization as a new single ticket buyer, and then hopefully becoming a repeat ticket buyer, and then a multi-ticket buyer to multiple shows, and then a subscriber, which we call season tickets. And then at the highest level, becoming a donor, a higher donor, and then an investor and sponsor. And we all pretty much consider that investor sponsor, often the people that become leaders and board members in our organization, is the pinnacle of our engagement. And we continue to spend a great deal of time and attention and give nice perks to that patron. And that patron then in turn becomes a massive advocate for the organization, and they get a little gold ribbon, and they advocate to their friends, their families, their contacts about the theater, and they bring people into the theater who then those people begin to start that journey of engagement up those steps to repeat this. And these patrons at the top are normally thought of as in the primary land and touch points of our development department. And the bottom rungs are thought of as the marketing department, bringing in new single ticket buyers and then getting them to come back to more performances, attend again. And then between that is our box office, and our box office handles the transactional part of a patron's journey, their ticketing. While this model is still valid and important, I'd say that it's a little too simplified. And while it's not wrong, and I'm giving you a big red X, it's not wrong, but it's not entirely showing the true picture. And when we look at a patron's journey of engagement within our organization, we actually look at this model a little bit differently. And we think of every level of engagement having the potential to drive advocacy and deepening relationships. And we help to encourage this with providing the best possible experience to all our patrons, the best customer service, follow up with surveys and targeted marketing. And our targeted marketing is based on where the patron is in their engagement with our organization. We try not to just send one brochure out to a mass audience. We will send targeted messages to specific audiences based on their engagement. We've also put in place many methods to encourage our patrons to bring new people to our theater, no matter what level they're at in their engagement path. And we offer programs like Friends and Family for our patrons, our subscribers, to bring their friends at a discount. We have a program called Buy More, Save More, which encourages multi-time visits to our theater with some targeted discounting. One of our industry leaders in terms of statistics, TRG, put out a very interesting statistic that most first-time buyers, if you're just the new single ticket buyer, there's a 73% chance that you're never coming back to the theater. You're never coming back to, you bought a ticket and then you're gone. However, if you're a second time buyer, there's a 70% chance that you are coming back a third time. And that's really important because we know that if we get someone to try the theater for the first time, it's very important for us to get them to come in a second time, because coming in a second time leads to a third time and a fourth time and starts this engagement path. Also, we think of who handles these patrons, whether it's development, box office, and marketing, a little bit differently. It's not as hierarchical where the development department is mainly dealing with the donors and marketing is just bringing in people on the lower levels. We look at it more like this, where marketing and development work closely together with patrons at all levels. Development is just as likely to bring in a new single ticket buyer, and marketing is just as likely to drive a donation. And we work very closely as departments to cultivate our patrons no matter where they are on their path. Also, box office, we've actually renamed to guest services, and that's because 80% of our tickets are now sold online. And that's probably similar with many of your organizations. Someone who wants to just buy a ticket is not engaging with someone directly at the organization. They're going to our websites. And our box office has actually become the place where people come to with questions or more complicated situations or problems. And that's really customer service. And to drive the point home that they're just not ticket takers, that they are customer service representatives, we've changed the name to guest services. During the COVID pandemic, all of us were devastated, and the forced shutdowns were incredibly hard on the arts. And during that period, we were all struggling to survive. And we were all trying at this time to get the message out that the arts were still a very important part of someone's well-being and should be supported. Rightly, though, a lot of funding went toward healthcare resources and boots on the ground at the time. And while the arts seemed to not be top of mind, the passion for the arts remained and took on new forms, such as artists performing virtually, artists performing from their balconies, or any way an artist could safely perform. And the public embraced that. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, we're moving from survival mode into what I hope for all of us is going to become a period where we can start thriving again. And we now must pivot and make the case for the power of live shared arts experiences, that it's so vital to our health and well-being. Just this morning, there was news reports that a study came out and it showed that there are more Americans that suffer from depression than ever before. And part of that is because we spent the past many years isolated. We're social beings. It's our human nature to connect and to experience things together. And the messaging that we're starting to put out is trying to compete with the comfort that people have had from just staying at home or going to the park, doing other activities that weren't about gathering together. So we've pivoted from direct advocacy about why the arts are so important to keep alive and concept to a strong focus on getting people back, getting people out of their sweatpants and back into our doors to experience the power of live shared arts experiences, in our case, the performing arts. And even before we went into these COVID lockdowns, there was a patron engagement concept called IDEA. And I think that this concept is more important now than ever before. And IDEA stands for Intentionally Deepening Engagement and Access. And at State Theater, we put that into practice by striving to create meaningful and deepening connections, quality interactions, and to develop a lifelong love of the arts. And this is done across the organization. It's not just marketing's job. It's not just development's job. It's our guest services department. It's our front of house staff when people come into the doors. We all need to understand the concept to develop better engaged patrons leads to lifelong advocates for our organizations and the arts. And at State Theater, we put messaging to our patrons in almost everything we do about thanking them for coming, for their commitment to supporting the arts. We emphasize the fact that we are nonprofit and that it's our mission to ensure the arts remain a vibrant and important part of our community. And we also shorten this concept into the power of live, getting people back to the power of live shared arts experiences. We put these into practice in many different ways. So our president and CEO, Sarah Chaplin, she welcomes guests at almost every event we host with a curtain speech, welcoming them for coming, that their ticket supports our nonprofit arts mission. And she thanks the donors for attending also to get the idea across that we are an organization that does not just rely on ticket sales, but also donations. We also put this into practice in all of our marketing materials. So when you leave the theater after a performance, you are emailed a survey asking how was your experience, that we want your feedback. And in the survey and in the email, we also emphasize the fact that we are a nonprofit organization that's here to foster the arts and the community. We also put that in many of our marketing materials. In this case, this is a subscriber letter that thanked people. And your subscription isn't just to come to the theater to see a show, it's also to support the arts in our community and to be able to bring these kinds of shows to the community through both your ticket purchase and your donations. And also a year ago, coming back from COVID, we launched a program to help bring a wider segment of people into our theater. And we were able to do this with funding that we were able to garner using the tools that ArtPride provided us. All those stats and statistics about the economic impact of the arts in our community, those are things that we use to actually speak to Bank of America in this instance, who funded this program. With these tools, we were able to have a very intelligent and compelling conversation with Bank of America about supporting subsidized tickets for communities and patrons that are challenged due to the economics, and patrons that would not traditionally be able to attend arts programs due to lack of affordability. And with their help, Bank of America now subsidizes tickets to every single one of our shows. And we offer $10 tickets to every show we present, available to people that are on the WIC and J Family First Food Assistance Program. And we're also about to announce that we're expanding this program and now going to be offering this to anyone who has a Medicaid card, and also with students, for students with a valid ID. And excuse me, and why we do this is because it's important to us to embrace our communities. And our communities are all different kinds of backgrounds, different kind of economics, different kinds of people. We are about bringing a shared arts experience and bringing people together. And when I look at these photos that are just taken from some of our shows, it reminds me of why I do what I do. That to see these children's faces, who in some cases are in the theater or in a theater for the first time in their lives, that we're presenting something to them that shows the magic and power of these shared experiences. And that's what's so important and vital to what we do. And with that, I will turn this back over to Tanisha and Vince, and thank you for your time.
You're muted.
Give us a chance to see if any of us have any questions for Anne Marie or for Howard. I don't see any now, but I just wanted to make sure I gave space for any questions that may have popped up. Great presentation, Howard. Right? It was. Okay, so next slide, Vince, please. So I'm not going to rehash what they've already said, but as I was reading it, it really came to my mind the idea of how one becomes a resident of a neighborhood, right? We keep talking about building community. What does it look like when one builds and becomes a part of the community? You know, it can start as a visit. I'm going to New York and I'm going to see, you know, a thing. I love this thing. I'm going to vacation there all the time, right? I'm always going to go back to the Guggenheim to see. Let's change that. I'm always going to go to the State Theater, New Jersey, because they always do great work, right? Then you decide that you want to become a vested party. You want to be in a part of that. You become a resident. You want, this is now my theater. Hey, what do you do for fun? I go to the State Theater, right? Once you become a resident of it, right? Now you have book clubs. Now you join committees. Now you become a volunteer because you have vested energy into this space. And of course, now that you've been a part of this thing, now you just want everyone to know. And it's the same stepping stone that Howard just went through. But for me, it really kind of landed when I thought about, like, how do you in life outside of the spectrum decide that you want to take up residence in a space? And so as we continue to build and sustain our communities, it's important to remember that the journey of the arts patron is not an isolated one. And by working together to create a cohesive arts community that encourages exploration and discovery, we can create a sustainable future for the arts sector. And this can be achieved through statewide art branding and advocacy efforts that showcase the economic and social benefits of the arts. Can I have the next slide, please? As Howard mentioned earlier, data tells us that when a patron enjoys 2 experiences, they're more likely to enjoy a 3rd experience. Data also tells us that if they experience an art, to be redundant, experience in one space, they are likely to go to another space. So if you go to a theater on Main Street, you are more likely to go to the museum further down on Main Street. So the high tide lifts all boats, right? There are Discovery Jersey Arts goal is clear, and it's to enhance the awareness and participation of the arts in New Jersey, right? We are designed to promote the cultural enrichment opportunities that you all produce for audiences and to support arts funding at the local, state, and federal levels. Now, by developing patrons to support the arts, you have a ripple effect on the New Jersey economy, which has been said time and again. This is creating jobs and generating revenue for local businesses. It is the proactive development of our audiences that built in the foundation for support when the crisis hits our sector, like in 2004 with the massive funding crisis or the 2020 COVID pandemic. So that was just me kind of like putting a button on the wonderful stuff. And it's all the slides and all the information will be provided in an after report. But next slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's next for Jersey Arts and what that means for you specifically. As yes.
Yeah, the one thing, I'm sorry, but I didn't interrupt you, but the one thing I forgot to mention also, and it sort of hit me in the middle of all this, is that many of our arts marketers are involved in the AIM program, which also provides a ton of demographic information about your audiences. So if you know, the Keep Jersey Arts Alive site is one place, but if you're involved in AIM, that's another place where you can get a lot of this.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for sharing that. Yes. Next slide, Vince. So our Summer Stages series will not be returning this summer as we move into the final stages of the development of our new website. We service over 300 arts organizations, and we're working hard to make sure we develop a product that not only helps your organization reach as many New Jerseyans as possible, but also help our fellow New Jerseyans find all the golden nuggets that is you near them. Furthering that end, we are, next slide, going to be continuing with the jerseyarts.com feature stories. So please, please, please continue to send your press releases to C. Stroud and to myself to promote your efforts through our social media platforms and to be considered for feature stories throughout the summer. Finally, Road Trip is returning, and we'll be featuring 10 arts producing cities for New Jerseyans to explore this summer. If you want to know more about that, we have a QR code there for you to scan, and you also can visit us at jerseyartsroadtrip.com for more information. I knew that we would be a little shy of an hour. Next slide. But it looks like we are super shy of an hour. Are there any questions, thoughts, concerns, feedback, anything you'd like to share with us before we round this morning out? Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Howard and Anne-Marie. You both were a wealth of information. And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn. Thank you so much, everyone.